Welcome to the Sportz Phenz Show. The show where, just like you, we can't get enough sports.
The 47-year wait is over! And the Nuggets win it! Wilson throwing, it's up for grabs, and it's caught for the touchdown! And the Denver Broncos have taken Super Bowl 50. And the Avalanche are 2022 Stanley Cup champions! And a shot into the back of the net for Diego Rubio!
Now here's your hosts, Arthur Knight,
What up, Sportz Phenz? You are watching the Sportz Phenz podcast. I am Michael Wharton, a.k.a. the Illy Mammoth. I'm filling in for Arthur Knight tonight. And on my side, I got Ryan, what's your last name?
Lagan.
Yeah. Ryan, I didn't want to say it wrong. Ryan Lagan, my right-hand man, and we're going to discuss all things sports, probably mostly local Colorado-related sports, but we'll try to branch out a little bit. We hope you guys are ready. Before we get into the show, of course, we got to pay some bills, so we are coming to you live from the Batcave behind So High Cafe, where they feature Viper Pit Barbecue and Taqueria, all your tacos and burritos and tamales and elotes and all that kind of stuff. We're at 4300 West Alameda Avenue in Denver. You can put in an order ahead of time. Vinny likes that a lot. Order up some ribs or some burnt ends. You can reach him at 303-807-0151. Also, we are brought to you by INV Vision. All your optometrist needs, they'll get you hooked up right with some nice glasses, frames, all that kind of stuff. They take most insurance. You can find them in Aurora at 700 South Buckley Road, Unit K, or you can reach them at 720-762-4290. Alrighty then. The more you know. So I guess we got to start out with the Broncos. They pulled out a maybe improbable win against the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Of course we got to start there.
Yeah. I mean, Eagles' first loss of the season to the Broncos. People were kind of, it was up in the air before that about exactly where the Broncos stand. Impressive win against the Cincinnati Bengals in the previous week. But, of course, as we all know, the Bengals are buns. And so you can't really get too much of a reading off that. What did you think about that Broncos game?
First loss until the Giants beat the Eagles tonight, first of all. It seems like they've just completely rattled them, and they're going to completely unravel now.
Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think so. No,
yeah, okay.
No, it was definitely – we were talking about this last week, obviously. Very important game for the Broncos from a confidence-building perspective. First loss until the Giants. You could argue is, one of the biggest wins of Bo Nix's career.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Do you have an argument for a game that was bigger than that one?
He had some pretty good, impressive games last season, the last half of the season, but as he was starting to kind of like figure out the NFL game. But I think as far as like a flagship sort of, people keep saying on, local sports talk, a signature win. And
right.
I don't know if we can necessarily define it as a signature win right now. We got to see how they build off of that moving forward. If they fall off, then it might just be just one of those outliers. But I was impressed, especially at the, that's a pretty big comeback for a second-year quarterback that's still trying to find his feet underneath him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how often you can expect to have an 18-0 fourth quarter on the road against an undefeated defending champ like that. That was pretty special. And anytime you get that big of a deficit made up in that kind of time frame, obviously there's always going to be the question how much of it was, the good things the Broncos were doing versus, maybe like things that the Eagles weren't doing. But, Bo Nix was sharp down the stretch. He completed a very high percentage of his passes. He moved the ball down the field. And, whatever you think about the Eagles' performance last week, you can't take that away from Bo, for sure.
Yeah, the Eagles, I didn't know what to expect going in this game. I thought it was entirely possible the Broncos could pull one off. It'd probably be a close one, but I've heard some criticism for maybe Sirianni's game plan on this one. There was maybe some poor coaching decisions that happened that might have led to them falling short of beating the Broncos. I'm not sure if it was as much that or if it was more the Broncos really kicking it into high gear with the offense in the second half, and then definitely the Broncos defense kind of staying consistent through the entire game, all the way through the fourth quarter.
Sure. Well, and, not for nothing, but it's 17-3 Eagles going into the fourth quarter, and you look at the box score after the fact. I don't know if I fully processed this at the time. 11 total rushing attempts for the Eagles the entire game. I don't think there's any excuse for, in a game where you lead for 3 quarters, only giving Saquon the ball 6 times. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I do buy that criticism of Sirianni's game plan from that perspective.
And we mentioned it last week. There was some maybe a little bit of controversy in their wide receiver room. You know what I mean? Right. Leading up to the game. And who knows if maybe if you cry enough, then you kind of like get your wish. And so then they maybe switched up their style a little bit to try to appease their crybaby wide receiver.
Right. Yeah. No. And I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of balancing that you can do with that throughout the season, to try to keep those guys locked in. But at the end of the day, you're professional. Like, whether you're getting 1 target or 10, like, if your team is winning, I can see crying if you're 0-4, but your team's 4-0, like, you can't be letting that impact your ability to win games because you're force feeding the guy the ball. I have to double check where they're at in tonight's game, the Eagles, but last I looked, I think there's 1 target apiece for Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, and then I think 5 targets for Dallas Goedert. So I don't know if it's just the plays that they're calling, or if Hurts doesn't feel like these guys are getting open, but they've been together long enough. You have to imagine they have chemistry at this point. So it starts to beg the question, what's the issue with getting guys that I think everyone would say are very talented, what they feel is a healthy share of the ball.
Yeah, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so
there's 1 target apiece for
what's going on there?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm
you getting the echo?
Yeah, I'm hearing myself talk back to me, which guys that I'm not fun to listen to more than once. I can do about 1 time of me.
Yeah.
Share of the ball. I don't know if everyone else can hear that or not, or if that's just in our ears.
But it ain't broke, don't I hope not. So I wonder where Vinny is. What's going on there?
I don't know. That's okay. We're professionals. We'll push through it.
We will. So, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Why would they switch up? They got maybe arguably top 3 running back in the league. Why would they try to, like you said, force feed just because A.J. Brown is feeling like he's not getting his share of targets.
And it's one thing if you give Saquon the ball 10 or 15 times and he's only getting 2 yards a carry because the Broncos are sticking 8 people in the box or what have you. But, he was averaging, I think, 5 yards per attempt for the 6 carries he did get. I just don't see what universe that 6 carries is okay. And he's already got 7 tonight, to be fair, and he's surpassed his yardage from last week, or mid-second quarter against the Giants. But
they walked that one back real quick.
Yeah, for sure. I think there were some apologies in the locker room in the days off this week. But yeah, I don't understand how you can give Saquon the ball less than 20 times in a game where you're leading most of the game, especially. There's no excuse.
And of course, like always, and especially with Philadelphia, their fans are like notorious for, being from
super, super awesome, happy people.
Yeah, just real fun to be around. You know what I mean? So, and then there's been some excuse making and some crying happening. Like, you look online or maybe if you happen to dive a little bit into like the Philadelphia sports talk area, which I try to avoid as well because they're just as bad as the fans. But I'm hearing a lot of talk about that the refs gave the game away. Mm-hmm. It's the refs' fault. They weren't being fair.
Yeah.
Maybe some missed calls.
Yeah, that's cute, honestly.
Yeah.
As a Packers fan who still loses sleep about the touched reception with the replacement refs against Seattle, I don't know if you remember that one. I certainly do. I have very little sympathy for stuff like okay, it's one thing like if you're a Saints fan and you want to talk about that NFC Championship game with the pass interference calls or like blatant things like that was the difference between the results in the game. But I think the plays that they're talking about are definitely calls that could go either way, and definitely calls that Denver fan base would have been just as mad, if not a lot more upset, had the flag been thrown or not been thrown, what have you. In watching that game, I just don't see it. I mean, I get the green and silver colored glasses and how they could have seen that. But you got to put yourself in a better position to win the game where you're not relying on a pass interference call from midfield with no time left in the game to have a chance. That's not a reliable way to win games.
And I don't think that I don't feel like I'm better than like your average Joe or any other or the next man. You know what I'm saying? I get mad at bad calls or maybe even like calls that are perfectly fine, but it's against my team. I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy. Like if you just look at the numbers, I mean, Denver had 12 penalties for 121 yards, Philly 9 for 55. There's a pretty big gap there. I don't think there's much room for the Philadelphia fans to cry about that.
Yeah, and I hear this argument in basketball a lot too, where guys will be like, I don't know, John Morant drove to the rim 25 times tonight, and the Grizzlies only shot 10 free throws, and the Clippers shot 30 free throws or whatever it is, and it's like some of that is still whether you're actually fouling or whether you're actually committing the penalties or not. Like you can't necessarily just judge how it was refereed based on the number of calls you get. But yes, to be fair, like that's not a bad way to look at it and say, oh, the refs clearly were not just out to get y'all the whole game like that. Yeah. Because that would have looked different if that was the case, for sure.
Yeah, here's a side note, and just because basketball's different with the fouls versus penalties or whatever, but it's infuriating to watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just go to the line so many times and so many more times than most other people.
Yeah.
But he's got it down. He's drawn those. It's an art form. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you got to respect that a little bit, I guess. And I hate to say it hurts me deep in my soul to say that right now. But there is an art form to it. But yeah, with this Broncos Philly game, penalties are going to happen, bad calls are going to happen, missed calls are going to happen, and sometimes it's lopsided. But for the Eagles to try to use that as their excuse, I don't think that's the game plan right now. I don't think that's the vibe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I could go down that SGA rabbit hole with you too, because then you start talking about like the people he learned it from, the James Hardens of the world and stuff like that, and you can talk about how some of those things translate better to the playoffs and stuff like that than others. But I think to sum it up, to your point, like if the shoe was on the other foot, and the Eagles were watching the play happen on the other side of the field, I think they would have been just as upset if that flag was thrown against them or what have you as well. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Agreed. So moving forward, Broncos, Jets, London.
Yeah.
How we feeling about that one?
That's, here's the thing, anything can happen when you fly across the world to play these games. So I don't want to count the Jets out just because they're 0-5 and they usually find a way to jet their games up. But, it's a matchup that they should feel confident going into. Coming off of a win against the Eagles, you look at your next 2 weeks, your opponent's having a combined record of 1-9. I think it's easy to kind of maybe look a little too far ahead on the schedule. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, is not beating themselves and not, not taking this game as seriously as they should, because obviously it's a very winnable game, but it's the NFL, man. It's any given Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely, and I try to avoid cliches, but they just constantly creep their way into my vocabulary and vernacular. But yeah, that is true. Like, I mean, and especially these they're on the other side of the world. The time difference, the jet lag, they're out of their routine.
Jet lag, nice. Yeah. That's what we're gonna call this game if they lose, is a jet lag game for sure.
Exactly, the Jets lag. So but they don't have all their like normal resources. They're out of their element. They're out of their routines. They're and who knows like what kind of conditions these fields are in over there, because they're not used to, like, they don't got these dialed in for football. So I mean, it could be some weird stuff happening that could but I think that the key is turnovers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think that the Jets have forced any turnovers this year.
Right, and that's always I mean, yes, like that's a promising thing from one perspective, but also, we know historically turnovers have a lot of luck involved, and sometimes there's a regression to the mean involved with that too. I mean, I was thinking about that. We were talking about the Packers defense last week, and that was one of the things I was kind of reflecting on this week. Is they were one of the best teams in the league in turnovers last year. They've gotten better overall this year in yards given up, but there was a regression to the mean, and they haven't seen they've been below average on forcing turnovers, right?
Yep.
And that's been part of what's hurt them. You could argue the same for the Jets. Is this the week that they happen to catch, a tip ball in the right place or whatever else?
It is a funny shaped ball, and it tends to bounce strange.
Right.
It does some weird stuff. It has a mind of its own,
Right.
And I agree with your math. That's kind of how my math works. Is like if something's going one way, it's trending in this direction for a certain amount of time, that you just do,
Right.
for the universe to balance itself out.
Yeah.
And honestly, you can't count out Justin Fields. The dude can run. He's got some speed. He's tricky. I mean, This is his third team in 3 years, so there's probably something to be said about that. But you can't count him out. A guy that's talented like that is due for a brilliant game here and there. Let's just hope it's not against the Broncos in London in front of those English fans.
He's going to compete, and you have to dedicate a man to spy on him in the pocket every time he drops back, or he could take off and grab big chunk plays very quickly. And you can use him in your designed running game as well. The biggest thing with Justin Fields is keeping him contained and forcing him to throw the ball,
forcing him to do quarterback stuff.
Yeah, exactly, because he's unfortunately for the Jets not very accurate and not always the best decision maker. But you have to keep him in that lane, because if he gets out in the open, he's going to be trouble for sure. I actually think it's a good game for us to kind of get a pulse on how Sean Payton feels about the run game, because again, you look at the Philly game, and our boy J.K. Dobbins got the ball 20 times, which was great to see.
Yeah.
R.J. Harvey seemed to have a reduced role last week for rushing attempts, and then 3 catches on 3 targets. So not completely removed from the action, but it's certainly looking like it's J.K. Dobbins' backfield, not necessarily like a two-headed monster or a 1A, 1B like we might have thought it would shape up to be early in the season. But can Sean Payton give J.K. Dobbins the ball 20 more times regardless of the score? I think that's going to be a big part of it for them as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. I mean, that should be how the game plan works moving forward. I think J.K. Dobbins, while he's healthy right now, is a very effective weapon to use, and Sean Payton sort of last couple of weeks kind of implementing the run game a little bit more effectively and efficiently, and more often. I think that's maybe a good part of the reason why they're starting to kind of pull things together offensively. Yeah. As the season goes on, I think that I don't know what. So defensively, who is the Jets' biggest weapon? They got Breece Hall at running back. He's good.
Offensively for the Jets?
Yeah, offensively for the Jets. What are their weapons?
They have Garrett Wilson, who's a very good wide receiver, and Breece Hall, as you just mentioned. Those are probably the biggest threats on their roster. I'm just going through the depth chart now. I mean, they've got, they've got a few guys. They got Josh Reynolds and, Alan Lazard and Khalil Herbert and some of these kind of role player type of guys that have had moments with other teams, but Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are the only ones that you're really game planning for, I feel like. And when you have a cornerback like Pat Surtain to put on a guy like Garrett Wilson, gives you the freedom to kind of stack the box against Breece Hall, and hopefully it should leave them with some very limited options on the offensive side of the ball. Because really, I mean, what you've seen all year when teams attack the Broncos defense, they just throw at Riley Moss all day long, and you need a reliable second option in the passing game to do that, and I just don't think that you've necessarily seen that out of the Jets offense this year. I mean, Garrett Wilson has 380 yards receiving on the season, and then their second best receiver is their tight end Mason Taylor, who's got 175 yards on the year in 5 games. So less than 40 yards a game. There's no one else that's been a consistent target. Breece Hall is third at 150 yards. Rucker, another tight end, is fourth at 72 yards. You have to get 5 spots down to get another wide receiver on the Jets' leading receivers on the year, and you get to a guy named Tyler Johnson, who's got 63 yards receiving on 4 catches for the year. So there's really no reliable second option in that offense, at least so far this year.
Yeah, that's not going to cut it against this Broncos secondary.
No,
that's not at all.
No.
And then with Nick Bonito coming around the edge, I'm feeling like it might end up being a bad day for Justin Fields. Isn't Bonito sitting on like 7 sacks on the season, and the Jets as a team have 7 sacks?
Yeah, Bonito's at 7, and it's been interesting because some of the guys, Franklin Myers and Zach Allen and some of these other guys that had big years recently, nobody else has more than 2.5 so far, but it hasn't mattered because you got Bonito just absolutely destroying backfields all season so far.
He's on pace for an insane year.
Yeah.
And so the more... And before the season started, I was kind of thinking that we were in the situation that we could have waited to pay, or the Broncos. Not we, I say we because I'm part of the Broncos.
You could say we. That's okay.
Yeah,
that's accepted sports vernacular.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that the Broncos should probably maybe wait until they're into the season to get a little bit more of a sample size. Because Nick Bonito had a monster year last year, which was exponentially better than his previous season.
Yeah.
Just in case,
Sure.
it was just like a freak occurrence that he had this crazy year, and then maybe it was gonna level out or something. But
right.
Now they paid him before the season started, and the way that it's the trajectory is headed, it's looking like they got a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, and there's obviously there's 2 kind of schools of thought with this. To your point, like, you're taking a chance one way or the other when you've got a guy that, out of nowhere has a 13.5 sack year. I mean, not completely out of nowhere. He had 8 sacks in 2023, but, 3 years into his career, limited playing time as a rookie, or at least limited impact as a rookie, I should say. That can go one of 2 ways. You can either be overpaying for, what was kind of a fluky season, or you could be, trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit. And, you've seen both strategies, benefit or hurt teams in different respects. I know the Denver community loves talking about baseball, but I use my Red Sox as an example for this. They've gone out of their way now to sign a couple of their young guys to, these kind of like 8-year, maybe $10, $15, $20 million a year deals, betting on the guy before they've actually proved it, because they know like the trajectory they're hoping that guy's on. You wait a couple years and you're looking at a $40 plus $1 million contract, right? And it's something that kind of wrecks your whole roster in the process. So I see both sides of it, because you don't want to throw that money out and then he all of a sudden starts facing double teams that he didn't face earlier in his career, and the impact falls off dramatically. But generally speaking, like I think it's always, if you believe in the development system that you have as a franchise, then it's good business to bet on your guys early, and give them security for their family early on, because they're still taking a chance every year that they have to go out and prove it too, right? They could get career-ending injury at any time, God forbid, but that's kind of that mutual, like, hey, we believe in you, we also want to get ahead of this before we really owe you the big money.
Yeah. And forgive me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like Nick Bonito's was an extension that doesn't kick in for 2 seasons.
So normally they have like the 5th year is a team option on the rookie contracts in the NFL. Which I don't know exactly where they were at with that part of it. I'd have to look at the details of the contract again. But this is his 4th season in the NFL, for what it's worth. So.
Okay. He could always ask them to tear that thing up and renegotiate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same fear with Pat Surtain, because they paid him last season, and if he was the top paid corner in the league for about 5 seconds.
Right.
And then and I think his kicks in next season.
Yeah.
And that could definitely be something that he's going to want to maybe renegotiate here
it's
soon.
It's always nice to pay someone before they get Defensive Player of the Year, right? And you saw that with like Patrick Mahomes' contract, for example. What was it, 10 years and $500 million or something like that? And at the time it was this crazy contract and whatnot, and now it's like you got guys I don't remember what Kirk Cousins' last contract was, but like lower caliber guys signing, higher paying deals. And all of a sudden it doesn't look so bad anymore, because, the market is growing so much within the 10 years of that contract that it actually ages better than you might have expected at the time. But
I thought I heard 40 for Kirk Cousins, but I might be wrong on that. But that's the thing. That's insane.
Anyone that is evaluated to be, above average starting quarterback is starting at 40 in those negotiations now.
Yeah.
That's just the price to walk in the door and start the conversation at this point. And now you've got Dak Prescott's getting $65 million a year or something like that.
Yep.
I mean, and it keeps growing.
Yeah, who knows where that market's going to be sitting in a few years when Bo Nix's rookie contract is up, and if he delivers on Sean Payton's promises, he might be asking for a pretty penny as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why this season, next season, the year after that are so important. It gets talked about a lot, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but obviously taking advantage of of your quarterback being on their rookie contract when you can afford to give out big money to Bonito and Allen and Franklin Myers and Surtain and all these other guys that they've now paid. Meanwhile, these running backs can't get anything resembling a good contract.
No, it's all about the rock stars, man.
Yeah,
it was wide receivers and the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So speaking of Kirk Cousins, he we were texting with Arthur, and he was talking about some subjects for the show, and he wanted to mention that the Raiders suck. The Raiders are not doing good right now. You know what I'm saying?
In case there's any Raiders fans listening, I can't imagine many of them would be, but
there is an unbelievable amount of Raiders fans in Colorado, but I'm not sure if they're tuned in right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Hopefully that. I'm not sure if their phone is on.
They just gave up on this season already. Just no more sports till next year, sort of thing.
Their phone service has been shut off.
Yeah. Hindsight's always 20/20, man. But I mean, drafting a running back before you've got a serviceable offensive line, as good as Ashton Genty is, I mean, you can ask Saquon and the Giants how that worked out.
Yeah. Do you have his numbers handy right now, Ashton Genty? Like, he was.
I don't, but I could pull him up for sure. It's worth looking at. I mean, it's not like he's been bad. Don't get me wrong, but it's not.
No.
It's not necessarily winning them games. Obviously,
he's super talented, and he in college he was a world beater. But this is the NFL, and he.
Yeah. Not only is it not like college football, but it's not the Mountain West anymore either, whatever Boise State plays in.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean, there's good, as a Appalachian State fan, there are good group of 5 teams out there, I promise, but it's a little bit different for sure. I mean, he's averaging over 4 yards a carry. He's got 82 carries, 349 yards, 2 touchdowns on the year.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's serviceable. I mean, you look at his his game log here. I mean, he had a very big game against Chicago, and that's kind of helping his numbers now. He had 21 carries, 138 yards, and a touchdown. Outside of that, he hasn't cracked 70 yards in the other 4 weeks of the season. So that's kind of where he's sitting at this point. So, I mean, and some of those games, 19 carries for 38 yards against New England to start the year. I mean, that is exactly what I'm talking about, right? I mean, you can break all the tackles in the world, and it doesn't matter if the entire defense is in the backfield by the time you get the snap,
Yeah. What's happening to Geno Smith, man?
That's a great question. I mean, and I think it's kind of a bigger philosophical question when you talk about, this comeback that he had in the first place in Seattle, and obviously it's been interesting to watch Sam Darnold over there this year, and Baker Mayfield in Tampa now, and some of these other guys that, the league gave up on until they didn't, right? And
Danny Dimes.
Yeah, until they found success elsewhere. Yeah, Daniel Jones in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
That's a great point. How much of it is the quarterback? How much of it is the offense? The play calling versus the weapons versus there's obviously a lot of factors that go into it, but certainly helps when you're feeling confident. And if you're Geno Smith, I can't imagine you're feeling very confident right now.
Yeah, no, he's having a horrible season.
Yeah.
People thought that that this was going to be a 4-way, just a slugfest in the AFC West this year, but it doesn't look like it's panning out to be that.
Yeah, I mean, and I know I'm not going to be like the revisionist history I told you so guy. I probably would have argued with you even before the season started about a 4-way slugfest. I think it was a safe bet to say the Raiders had the potential to improve. The bar was very low, obviously, but I feel like it was a much safer bet to put them in that kind of 7 or 8 win range than hanging with the Chiefs, Broncos, and Chargers is not a division that most, or if any team wants to be having to compete with. But.
No, and I've even heard people say to me that the AFC West might have like the 4 best coaches in the league, and that's very, very debatable.
Certainly the most accomplished, I think, is fair to say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And obviously coaching is a little bit different than playing the game, and then you start to get to the question of like what does a drop off look like as do you reach an age where you're not as good as a coach anymore? I feel like I don't know. You can argue with me if you disagree. I feel like with coaches, it's less of an issue. Obviously within reason. I mean, you can't trot a 90-year-old out there, but like it's more about, is your message fresh with the team than it is like are you the best version of yourself, right? Because even looking at these 4 guys, I mean, yes, Sean Payton and Andy Reid draw up a lot of plays and stuff like that, but if you're surrounding yourself with the right coordinators and assistants, like it's more about can you motivate the right behaviors from your team? Can you build a culture? And that doesn't necessarily leave when you turn 70,
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know about the culture out there in Las Vegas at all.
It's not good.
It's been bad for a minute, and it's not necessarily an immediate turnaround, no matter what changes you make.
Right.
Yeah, and and speaking, and it's kind of funny because we're talking. I've heard it referred to as like the year of the reclamation projects as far as like quarterbacks, because like we said, like all these quarterbacks that were maybe written off recently or in the past are now having these renaissance years.
Baker Mayfield's got some MVP candidacy going now.
Yeah, and so
wild.
Then you ask, well, why is that? Why were they playing so poorly, before, and then now in their new situation, they're at, like looks like a whole different new player, and like you said, well, maybe that's the coach or the coaching or the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, if you look at something like Andy Reid without Mahomes is very accomplished, and I don't have the numbers offhand, but Andy Reid has had he had so much success before Mahomes that he could have just hung it up right there and been a legend at that point. But then in the inverse, you got like Bill Belichick without Tom Brady, just fell off the cliff, and now he's doing God knows what in the college realm where he has no idea what he's doing, and he might even be under some sort of spell. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't know. So it could, I don't know, either way, or is it like a synergy thing or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about it is, it takes a village. It's, it's never gonna, no matter how good a coach you are, you can't coach, a Canadian Football League team to win a division in the NFL. You can't quarterback a college team to win games in the NFL, no matter, even if you've got prime Tom Brady out there. Like, obviously the Bill Belichick thing, the marriage with Tom Brady was great because Bill Belichick has always been a defensive guy, and so they kind of each were able to take care of their respective sides of the ball and made it work that way. Obviously North Carolina's been a little bit of a mess. I will say this, I think the 2-3 start in North Carolina is a little bit overblown because I think it's fun and easy and good, camera fodder to talk about the demise of Bill Belichick, right? I mean, you look at that North Carolina roster that he inherited. I know the ACC isn't the toughest division in college football, but they were never going to be, prime Dabo Swinney, Clemson right away. They've beaten the teams they were supposed to beat, and maybe the losses to the teams they were supposed to lose to have been a little bit uglier than some people would have liked to see if they're UNC fans. But college, with all the recruiting involved, which is brand new to Bill, that's going to take a learning curve for him to figure out as well.
It's just an unfamiliar realm to him. Like, he doesn't have any connections in that. He doesn't. What does he know? I mean,
obviously he relates to college age people.
That is funny. But I'm just picturing Bill like talking to like some 5-star high school. It's just like, hello, fellow kids.
Yeah, right.
I'm Bill.
Yeah.
We got a lot in common. Why don't you
Right.
come play for me? And that just doesn't seem like that's the case at all. Especially with the new temperature and the culture of NIL and all that kind of stuff going on. It's a whole.
And that's been an adjustment even for accomplished, college coaches. I mean, obviously, I just brought up Dabo Swinney. That's probably the best example. But Nick Saban didn't want any part of it either.
No.
It's not what it used to be. It takes a different skill set. It's not necessarily, I'm not saying it's better, worse, or the same, right? But it takes a different skill set to be successful now than it used to be. And you're seeing that affect coaches that have historically been successful and other coaches that are now able to, to be better than they were in the past as well.
For sure. So back to
the original question.
Yeah, the Raiders. The Raiders, they got horrible, toxic culture. They got an ancient, elderly head coach, and they've got and their quarterback is like losing his mind or somehow. Is there something they can do? Geno Smith is not the answer. And Arthur had suggested we discuss. Could they trade for Shedeur Sanders or maybe Kirk Cousins? Yeah,
interesting question there.
Very.
I don't. I actually would have loved a Kirk Cousins trade for Cincinnati because you talk about the difference in the goals that those two teams have. Cincinnati is literally just trying to not, lose every game, stay somewhat in contention until they can get Burrow back on the field. And, I think Kirk Cousins accomplishes that. I don't know what Kirk Cousins accomplishes if you're the Raiders. Like, I don't think that I mean, yes, Geno Smith has not played well this year, but if you're going to sit there and tell me that Kirk Cousins on the Raiders is going to be the difference between 1-4 and losing by 34 to Indianapolis and being a Super Bowl contender, like what's your goal here? Are you just trying to be about a 500 team, or are you trying to, build a Super Bowl contender for the future, right?
Yeah, I don't think Cousins is a long-term solution for anybody. But whether you're looking for a long-term solution or a short-term, just for the interim until Burrows comes back, who's picking up that tab?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Cousins comes with a price tag.
He does.
And who you can't ask. No, who pays that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and that was my whole point with Cincinnati, right? Because if there's a team that it makes sense for, if they're, let's say they're 6-7, I don't know, when Burrow's back healthy again because they traded for Cousins, right? You have a legitimate chance of winning a Super Bowl if you bring Burrow back to that team 6-7. That to me is worth the 1-year investment. I don't know of another situation in the NFL where it makes sense like that, though.
Do they even have enough money?
That's a great question. Actually.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. That's a good. But
between Higgins, Chase, and Burrow, man, their funds are tied up. They got, you know what I'm saying?
They'd probably have to figure that out in what they're including in that trade.
They're like, see the way my bank account's set up.
Right, exactly, yeah. But no, the Sanders question is interesting because that's one where it's like maybe that could be your long-term solution. I get the feeling that Cleveland still wants to know what they have in him. Because of the way that they've handled their situation. Obviously their priority is to figure out what they have in Dylan Gabriel, and if Dylan Gabriel, and he didn't play bad last week in the loss. He did not. If he starts lighting it up, in the next week or two, where he starts to look like the guy they want to invest in, that could make Sanders a lot more available potentially. And I still don't know if you're Vegas, if you want to stick, even a guy that you look at as, hey, maybe this guy could be our future behind that joke of an offensive line, but at the same time, it's like you're gonna waste the whole season, or you're gonna try to figure out some kind of step in the right direction.
Yeah, but what is Cleveland do? They haven't even committed to assigning Shedeur as their backup yet officially. Yeah, in fact, they've publicly said they haven't made that decision yet. So what are they doing with him? It's like they're playing mind games with him, and then what? So I feel like he's gonna end up being the backup, and he'll be stepping up in case, unless they want to bring up Bailey Zapp.
Yeah, Bailey Zappi is their practice squad guy.
Yeah, so he's on the practice squad. If they brought him,
the alternative?
If they brought him up from the practice squad and put him in front of Shedeur, that would be that's just like a middle finger right to the face.
Yeah. Well, and I think there was a lot of speculation about whose call it was to draft Shedeur in the 5th round after taking Gabriel in the 3rd.
Some people say there was a mysterious phone call on the bat phone.
Yeah.
From the uppers.
Right, and
of the NFL.
I think bringing Bailey Zappi up and sticking him in the 2 slot would be the clearest indication that Stefanski and that GM, whatever his name is, want nothing to do with Shedeur and everything that comes with that. But I don't know. Again, it's like at this point, if you're Cleveland, you're 1-4 by the grace of Green Bay's horrible special teams. What do you have to lose at this point? But again, if Gabriel continues to play, even as somewhat decent as he played last week, I think it becomes a moot point because they're just going to keep rolling with him unless he starts, turning the ball over and forcing their hand.
Yeah. I don't know. And at this point, is Shedeur even game ready if he had to step up into that role if something happens?
Yeah. He played well in one of his 2 preseason appearances. And again, it's like, what does game ready look like? Because, whether it's Gabriel or Sanders, it's hard to say at this stage in their respective careers that you're seeing the best version of either of them, right? Assuming they continue to get reps. But, we're talking about a team that, we're going into week 6 and they've not gone over 17 points yet. So again, the bar is really low.
Yeah. It's a strange one. They shipped off Joe Flacco to the Bengals.
And good for them. You're talking about a guy that would have just sat on your bench and then left at the end of the season. Otherwise, and retired. The fact that they got some draft capital out of that investment, I know it was a 6th rounder for a 7th rounder or whatever it was, but that at least they got something out of it. I cannot understand what Cincinnati is thinking. I really can't.
No, it's and honestly, I'm a little concerned. I'm concerned for Joe Flacco's safety.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That O-line isn't known to be
it's elder abuse,
rock solid.
Yeah.
They're pretty porous.
Yeah.
They're poor, us. And but what are you going to do? Because you're a Packers fan. What are you going to do if Joe Flacco comes in there and beat you twice with 2 different teams in the same season?
That would be I don't even know what to say, honestly. I would be at a loss for words. We certainly would have earned whatever comes to us the rest of the season if that's the case, but I don't think that Flacco's performance is what I would point to as the reason that we lost to Cleveland.
No, he didn't. He had 0 touchdowns?
And at least
0 passing touchdowns. There was a rushing touchdown.
Yeah. I think
it was like all in the 4th quarter, pretty much.
I think Cleveland has a much better defense than Cincinnati, and we'll also be at home this time around. So hopefully we and I've been saying it for about 3 weeks that we should win in a blowout this week. Hopefully this is the week that's actually the case.
And no ill will towards you or the Packers. I like the Packers.
Appreciate it.
They got pretty cool uniforms.
They do.
But I think that would be pretty awesome if that happened. So I'm kind of going for it. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm honestly at this point I'm rooting for Flacco.
Flacco's swan song. Yeah. Listen, I'll be rooting for him against anyone but the Packers as well.
Yeah.
I was rooting for him 2 years ago when he got comeback player of the year for sure.
He seems like a super nice guy. He always gets along well in his locker rooms for the most part, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't buy into whatever the public personas are with that. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. No,
I actually know somebody that ran into it when he was briefly with the Broncos. Someone ran into him at a bowling alley.
He was with the Broncos?
Oh, never mind. I'm tripping.
Oh, okay.
Joe Flacco. No, never mind.
Who are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of, was it not Flacco? Yeah, whatever. Maybe he wasn't with the Broncos, but someone ran into him in a bowling alley.
Tim Tebow, maybe?
And he was super personable.
Got it. Okay.
No, it was definitely not Timmy T, dude. Not Timmy T.
Okay, fair enough. You'd remember if it was Timmy T.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Yeah. No, I would enjoy. I'm sure enjoy that experience running into Flacco in a bowl. So they talked to him in the bowling alley.
Yeah,
too?
They got pictures with him and everything. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Did the whole bowling alley get pictures with him?
I don't know. The whole bowling alley.
I feel like if I saw Joe Flacco a few lanes down at the bowling alley, I'd be a little hesitant.
He's unassuming.
I don't want to bother him.
He's unassuming, and I don't know if very many people recognized him. So
fair enough. Okay, that's fair.
But they said he was a nice guy, so I'll buy into that. I'll take that.
Well,
more so than the media.
Well, then I'm glad he didn't get overwhelmed, and I'm glad he had a nice interaction with some people that acknowledged him for everything he's done. That's great. Yeah,
got his couple of rolls in with uninterrupted.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
No, he didn't take any sacks trying to throw that bowling ball.
No, he might have actually. I think he took a couple. He was scrambling. So he didn't bowl very well either. It was like an 88 average. So
that's funny.
Jerry Jones. The wild ride that is Jerry Jones. He seems to.
He meant it to be a thumbs up.
That's what he says. Yeah,
Did you read the article with his whole interview about that?
No.
It was the most hilarious. I need to pull it up real quick because I was reading it and I'm like, this guy can't be serious, right?
Maybe it was he is 104 years old, so it's entirely possible that his motor skills aren't what they used to be, and instead of the one finger, it ended up being a whole different finger, and his arm was at a different angle, and then he pointed at the guy afterwards.
He's living in a different world. He really is.
Well, I think when you got that much money and power for as long as he has, and you're surrounded by nothing but yes men, then your perspective is going to be a little skewed.
It's easy to be in denial.
Yeah.
He goes, that was unfortunate. That was kind of an exchange with our fans out in front of us. There was a swarm of Cowboys fans out front, not Jets fans, Cowboys fans. The entire stadium was brimming with enthusiasm of Cowboys, and certainly late in the game. it was inadvertent on my part because right after we made our last touchdown, we were all excited about it. There wasn't any antagonistic issue or anything like that. I just put up the wrong show on the hand. That was inadvertently done. I'm not kidding. If you want to call it accidental, you can call it accidental. But it got straightened out pretty quick. I had a chance to look at it. I got it straightened out pretty quick. But the intention was thumbs up and basically pointing at our fans because everybody was jumping up and down, excited, end quote. So his excuse for this is, even though he's in New York, it's all Cowboys fans there, and he was getting hyped with the Cowboys fans, and he just, he was so excited that instead of putting the thumbs up, he accidentally puts a different finger up.
Yeah, sounds like definitely he's trying to pull the wool over our eyes the same way he tried to do that with Michael Parsons.
Well,
or per him, Michael Parsons.
Yeah. Credit to the NFL for not buying the excuse and finding him $300,000 or whatever it was. It should have been $3 million. It wouldn't have hurt his pockets.
No, but that's that's an expensive bird. You know what I mean? I'm not going to believe him for 1 second.
That being said, though, if I had that kind of money, I'd probably throw up a $200K bird every once in a while.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe it is worth it, you know. but just own it afterwards,
right.
You know what I'm saying? You're not going to – you might think you're a slick car salesman there, Mr. Jones, but we're not going to buy that one.
I mean, to be fair, he's all about his money, and if he had owned it, it probably would have been about a $600K fine instead of a $300K. If he was just like, yeah, Jets fans are the worst. They needed to hear that or whatever, you know.
It should just be a normal, frequent occurrence for him now, just flipping people off.
Yeah, just do it every week.
Pay those
at
fines.
This point. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, and here's the thing. I hate talking about the Cowboys, and I hate talking about Jerry Jones, and I have to say, to his credit, here we are talking about him again against all odds after a game against the Jets.
Yeah. Still talking about those America's sweethearts.
And the franchise value is probably going to exceed the $300K he paid out of his pocket as a result for all the airtime they're going to get as a result.
The amount of time that it takes him to write that check, he's going to make that back. That's for sure.
Man, yeah, he's not really good at making winning football teams, but he's good at making financially productive ones, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, those fans are pretty loyal down there in Tejas.
I can't believe they're not just there; they're still all over the place to this day, still riding that wave of those '90s teams somehow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, those '90s teams, man. That's some momentum. That's some residual. You know.
I'm sure Jimmy Johnson loves it too, with how much he hates Jerry Jones, knowing how big a part he is of filling Jerry's pockets. You know, because he's not seeing vast majority of that.
Yeah, they should do one of those celebrity boxing matches. You know what I'm saying? For charity.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. That only works with UFC fighters that need the paycheck. You know, it doesn't necessarily work with guys that can.
Yeah, those are more lucrative when there's like a YouTube streamer paying retired, washed up UFC fighters to take a dive.
Right. Did you watch that documentary of the Cowboys that went on Netflix or no?
No. Arthur's been really pushing for me to watch it, but I haven't checked it out yet.
I haven't watched it out of principle, and I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I can help fill Jerry's pockets that way. I think I've done enough to do that already.
Yeah, I got a long list of stuff I need to watch long before I put that one on.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Definitely.
If you haven't watched it yet, don't pay Jerry. Don't watch it, please. I don't care if it's good.
I'll purposely pirate it if I do. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
I won't give the numbers to Netflix for him or whatever. You know. So, what you been paying attention to the Nuggets in the preseason so far?
I try to not over-index on preseason. I've been checking the stats more than actually watching.
Yeah.
But, it sounds like the Nuggets have had some encouraging I know they're 1-1, right? But, some encouraging play. And at this stage, it's really about finding the glue for your guys. I did see Cam Johnson only had 2 points in the first game. They got him 11 points in the second game. And that's kind of what you're looking for, is seeing the growth together in those games, you know?
Across all sports, preseason is, some people put way too much weight into it. I think, it's a lot of experimenting and testing new things out, and especially with this new roster, man. There's a whole lot of new guys, and they gotta get that clicking. Not to mention that David Adelman is taking the helm, like for sure. He took over the last 3 games of last season and a couple series into the playoffs, and I think he did well. But I'm pretty sure he didn't have his game plan, his way, established, or he was probably sticking with a little bit of what was working before. I heard that in the playoffs there was like a little bit more freedom from how they were coached by Malone,
right.
and that seemed to be working. But I'm sure that he's got like a full idea of how he wants to go about this season with this new roster, this new very, very heavy, thick roster that's gonna, what I'm saying? And I wouldn't even expect it to fully click once the season starts, which is the 23rd of October in Golden State.
Yeah.
They'll probably get that win, but I don't expect the to see the whole machine greased up and working properly for at least maybe the first 10-15 games.
You're just real quick, something you said, you're putting your money on they go into Golden State game 1 and they come out with a dub. You're that confident at this stage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
They got Jokic, man.
I know they do.
Jokic and Gordon, and then looks like a revitalized Murray, in much better shape. Seems like he's in a better headspace.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
That's always going to be the biggest X factor for the Nuggets is what version of Murray do you get?
Yeah,
you know what you got with Jokic, you know what you got with Aaron Gordon, and obviously they've got some people that should be reliable contributors coming in now. But which version of Murray is always been the conversation of how high will this team go?
Yeah. But the stuff like Cam Johnson, he's a very, very cerebral type of player, but he's not just like a spot up shooter like MPJ was. He's got a little bit different game.
Yeah.
So whereas the veterans of the team are going to have to kind of figure out how to work around or work with that. I mean,
right.
Cam's also going to have to kind of figure out how the rest of these guys are working, and then he's going to have to settle into what exactly his role is on this team, and that's not going to just click off of a couple of minutes in the preseason. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There was a pass, I think it was during the Toronto game, where Jokic just launched this no look right at Cam in the corner, wide open, and he was not ready for it. But you see a giant smile on his face because he was like, yes, that's the stuff that I want.
Right.
That's what I've been fiending for, working with Jokic. And but it's not going to click overnight. So I think it's going to take a little bit for that to settle in. But yeah, Golden State, game 1.
Yeah.
Put some money on it.
I don't know. My thing with the Nuggets, that you're gonna have a top 5, top 10 offensive team, probably top 5, right? They're gonna be elite on that side of the ball. There's just too many weapons. You could argue more weapons than last year. The question for them, last year they played atrocious defense all season long, and they tried to turn it up in the playoffs. And what they look like on that side of the ball, and I think a big part of that is Adelman. Right, because to your point, he's trying to run with this thing on the fly when he gets the keys last year. I mean, having a whole off season to create a game plan, to create a system, to get people to buy into it. This is truly going to be the test of what he's going to bring to the table for them. And Cam Johnson isn't a horrible defender, but he's not an elite defender. Jonas Valanciunas is not a horrible defender, but for his size, he's not an elite defender. You do have Brucey B now, which he's aging and he's not super long, but he's going to be pesky for sure. And what does that actually translate to versus the defense you rolled out there last year becomes the question. And they're definitely, Cam Johnson is a smaller guy to have out there relative to MPJ, but we know MPJ's strongest skill set wasn't always moving his feet on defense either. So
no, he wasn't good, but he was definitely key in and if he was hot, if he had the hot hand, then you could count on him for him to kind of sit. And if they caught him, then he's likely to make it. But he's also pretty key with rebounds.
Yeah, right.
offensive boards, defensive boards, and I don't necessarily know if that's something that Cam Johnson brings to the table at the same level.
Not at that level.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not like
He'll be a better
Mike was
perimeter
huge,
defender, marginally better perimeter defender. But yeah, the rebounding is going to have to be a void that is filled by Valley and Jokic and Gordon for sure.
I don't know if you've seen any like interviews or podcasts that Cam Johnson has been on. The man is very, very he lives, breathes, and eats basketball. You know what I'm saying? He's very, very intelligent. He kind of breaks it down in the same manner as like a JJ Redick, you know,
Nice.
when they're speaking on like the technicalities of basketball and like, you know, the minutia, and I do like that because I'm not sure if Michael Porter Jr. was thinking at that level. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's kind of more. He's not like he's just a baller. You know what I mean? He was naturally gifted, but I don't know if he.
That kind of intellect's a dangerous combo to have on the floor with Jokic for sure.
And
like if they can figure out how to click together, especially when Cam Johnson can create his own shot when he needs to.
Yeah, once that starts clicking, I feel like that's going to be pretty potent. You know, especially because he's way better off the ball than Michael Porter Jr. was.
Right.
But
that Golden State game will be a great test. They were one of the best teams in the league after that Jimmy Butler trade, and they did get the deal done with Kuminga, and they got Horford now. So look for that to be a great early season litmus test for sure.
One thing I've heard about, and I'm not sure, I don't know how much weight to put in it because it's just all rumors and hearsay, you know, but like I've heard Adelman wants to kind of slow the game down a little bit, whereas before they were a fast break team. You know, you could in transition you could feed Christian Brown, you know, just 8 off of transition. You know what I mean? Slowing it down, is that going to maybe affect like someone like Christian Brown's game or like? Is that going to be a good fit with the people that are the guys already on the team? Is that something he has in mind with the new players? I don't know, but I do know that I'm curious to see what happens with it, and I definitely want to see what it looks like deep in the season once the all the starters are a little bit more rested and maybe not so beat up because the bench looks much better.
Yeah, for sure, should be fun.
Yeah, I think so. But I think we've run out of time, ladies and gentlemen. Sportz Phenz. Again, I'm Mike.
I know all about that.
Yeah, this is Ryan, and we hope you guys enjoy the show, and we will check you next time.
Utah Hockey Club, yeah. Is that? Oh, that's what they were their first season, right? Utah Hockey